Have you ever wondered what gives certain revolutions an edge even when the odds seem stacked against them? It is not the military power and not strength itself. Then what is it? In this video I reveal the surprising answer. First, the Cuban Revolution. In the 1950s, under the dictatorship of Fulgencio Batista, communists and the Cuban people started a revolution in Cuba. The government troops were more powerful than the guerrillas. What gave Fidel Castro and his guerrilla fighters a chance to survive and make the revolution successfully? The answer is the Sierra Maestra Mountains. These forests and mountains helped the revolutionaries for hiding and made it difficult for the government military to navigate. The terrain allowed Castro's forces to launch surprise attacks and defend themselves. The government troops, being unfamiliar with the land, struggled to mount an effective counterattack. The mountains provide as much of a challenge to Batista's soldiers as the revolutionaries did. After the success of the revolution, the mountain became a symbol of resistance and revolution, of course. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks. Number 2. The American Revolution. Just as the mountains aided Cuban guerrillas, forests and rivers played a similar role in the American Revolution. During the event, the British Army, one of the most powerful military forces in the world, faced American revolutionaries. While the British soldiers were better trained than the American revolutionaries, it doesn't really matter because of the nature. Just because of nature. The forests and rivers of the New World all became essential for the colonists in the war. Guerrilla tactics, which worked best in forests, allowed the Americans to ambush British troops. Rivers like the Hudson are essential for transportation route and creating natural barriers, slowing down the British and giving the Americans time to regroup and plan their next move. One pivotal example was the Battle of Saratoga in 1777, where American forces used the landscape to trap the British soldiers, turning the tide of the war. In battles like these, the forests and rivers were critical to the American success. Third, the Soviet-Afghan War. In the late 20th century, you can see another example of how land can make or break a revolution. Afghanistan's mountains have long been known as the graveyard of empires, and for good reason. When the Soviet Union invaded the country in 1979, they brought tanks and helicopters, but their technological might couldn't overcome the natural defenses of mountainous regions like the Hindu Kush Mountains. The Mujahideen fighters used the mountains for their advantage. While the Soviets going with big tanks, they couldn't navigate perfectly and the Mujahideens used their weak points to disappear and launch ambushes. In the end, the Soviet Union learned a bitter lesson: no matter how powerful your army is, if the land makes things difficult for you, you can't win the war. Afghanistan's geography played a central role in their resistance and eventual victory. Fourth, the Zapatista Rebellion. In 1994, the Zapatista Army of National Liberation launched a rebellion in Mexico's southern Chiapas region. While their cause centered on indigenous rights and resistance to neoliberal policies, their greatest ally was the Lacandon jungle. The thick jungle made it almost impossible for the Mexican military to locate and defeat the rebels. But the jungle wasn't just a place to hide, Zapatistas also contacted rural communities. The jungle itself became a network that allowed them to communicate, gather support, and resist the government's advances. Even now, decades later, the Zapatista movement survives, in no small part due to the protective power of the land that sheltered them in their early days. So now you know how less powerful fighters win a revolution. The answer is the land, the terrain. As examples show, land isn't just a passive element, it's often the key to revolution success. And I hope my voiceover is better from the previous video, so make sure to comment about it, it will help me. Thanks for watching. G4